Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Alex Wyman. We will start today's session with a discussion around how customers manage their large-scale environments with automated solutions. I'm here to introduce you to Oren Tahar, Business Development Manager of Storage Services at AWS, and Aviram Levy, Zesti's very own Head of Product Enablement. As a brief introduction, our Aviram, ex-AWS, formerly a Technical Account Manager, TAM, and founder and CEO of a startup with over 15 years experience in the IT industry. We're also joined by Oren, a tech veteran as well, who previously worked at SAP and Cisco before joining AWS more than 6 years ago. And Oren will be providing an inside peek of new AWS storage services. So without further ado, over to you two.
Thank you, Alex, for the warm introduction. I would like to start today's session by speaking about you, the engineers. Engineers today have to do so much more than just develop. They need to continuously predict and define the specifications of their infrastructure to support unpredictable business demand. The reason for this is that not all cloud resources can automatically adjust to the constantly changing application needs. Now let's talk about self-managed infrastructure. The notion of self-managed infrastructure is here to stay, and eventually you will have to manage it, whether via managed services or in self-managed environment. But how are engineers overcoming the enormous workload that is generated from having to self-manage so much of their infrastructure? Let's focus a bit about the industry trends that we see in the last couple of years. Large-scale customers use infrastructure as code. With tools like Terraform and CloudFormation, they use AWS building blocks to build infrastructure and maintain their deployments. While this gives them the feeling that their infrastructure is automated or managed, the fact is that it isn't. What they have is the ability to build infrastructure and modify it, but it doesn't allow them to optimize their infrastructure, save costs, and reactively fix issues. At Zesti, we believe that where possible, infrastructure management must be automated. Now you will ask yourself why. How much more value does it bring? Automation that is done by a trusted third party that has deep knowledge of the consumed services has the ability to mimic your actions while running 24/7 without being susceptible to human error. This enables a smooth run of production systems. Another aspect of automation is the additional cost optimization that you get. Not only is your infrastructure managed, it's also running more efficiently. I think we can all agree that manual cost optimization is a task that engineers tend to dislike. However, the task around automation, specifically around maintaining a piece of code, becomes very costly in terms of human effort. Hence, the need for third-party automation. Let's take a look at examples where automation is leveraged to drive greater value. A first good example would be SaaS solution automation in the security space. These platforms implement security controls, provide events visibility, proactively close security gaps, and reactively mitigate threats on your SaaS solutions, like Office 365, Salesforce, Jira, etc. These managed platforms are operated by industry experts that are conducting thorough security researches. Because of their niche specialization, they do a better job tuning security configuration. Furthermore, they do it for you 24/7. Another good example is CI/CD, which is the core engine for integration and deployment of new environments. It is very common to see organizations that implement CI/CD pipelines by using managed solutions. But even in these managed solutions, you still have to maintain and make sure that your pipeline is reliable, secure, and that it is able to work in large scale when needed. Now, let's move to talk about storage management challenges. When we talked with dozens of customers around the world, we saw several storage management challenges that they had to overcome with their workload. In order to ensure high application performance while avoiding service degradation and disk failures, your team is required to continuously monitor and manually manage your volumes to accommodate for possible scale. In doing so, engineers commonly deal with the following challenges. Spiky behavior, the tendency for data to periodically fluctuate, such as with data pipelines. An example of this could be an ETL job, where the raw data is erased after processing. Slow growth over time. As your business scales, it will produce more and more data, which means more storage capacity will be required. Another challenge is difficulty forecasting usage. Demand can surge at any time due to increased customer usage or an array of other factors that are difficult to predict. For instance, one of our customers is a revenue intelligence company. When they record a call, they have no way knowing if it will be 5 minutes, an hour, or 10 hours call. So they end up provisioning 2 terabytes for every call to account for all edge cases, even if that call is only 2 minutes long. The last challenge that we saw is performance requirements. In certain scenarios where higher level of IOPS are needed, over-provisioning may be required in order to achieve the desired system performance. Although these are general challenges that we see amongst engineers, we would like to hear about which of these challenges resonate with you. Please let us know over chat or by responding to the questionnaire that you will see in a few seconds. And we will appreciate taking a few moments to answer this questionnaire with the following question. What are your biggest challenges for managing EBS storage? You can pick up to 2 answers. And now you will see it on the chat or on the screen, sorry. Thank you for your collaboration answering our survey. Until now, there was no easy way to solve these challenges, other than by over-provisioning your volumes and spend more than you need. By over-provisioning your volumes, you are able to ensure service availability, high performance, and on top of that, this relieves engineering teams from continuous manual capacity adjustments, which occur due to unexpected peaks in scale. The challenge is that once you over-provision, there is no way to reduce the volume size without losing data, due to the fact that storage volumes are treated as a black box, where data is written randomly to the disk sectors. So you find yourself trying to guess what the right size of the volume should be, balancing the needs of application without having too much of the provisioned storage remaining idle and wasted, but paid for. We find that even the most diligent engineering teams tend to end up between 50 to 70% of their provisioned storage wasted. To address this challenge, an automated solution is needed for managing EBS volumes. Gaining optimal utilization and cost efficiency requires engineers to be able to increase and decrease storage volumes in real time, based on the application's needs. In essence, you will get the ability to automate in real time the right sizing of your storage volumes. This eliminates any need to manually manage your storage infrastructure. By only paying for the capacity that is actually being utilized, results in a dramatic reduction in your storage spend. Another aspect of this approach is that it eliminates the potential for data loss, which occurs from lack of capacity, letting the environment scale on the fly. I would like to share another use case with you today. Our customer is a B2B SaaS company that deploys a single tenant environment per customer. The company's offering connects to customers' data warehouse. Hence, there is a requirement for large EBS volumes when a query is being run by the end user. In many cases, users are running multiple queries that requires large amount of disk space. Since the amount of required disk is not predictable, our customer has to over-provision its volumes in advance, and sometimes server crashes when disk space is depleted. Of course, they do have monitoring and an on-call engineer to expand capacity manually when needed. Sometimes it might be too late. And this is a great example of the need for auto-scaling solution for EBS volumes. Bottom line, Zesty developed an AI-driven solution that automatically adjusts cloud resources to your application needs in real time. With Zesty, engineers can achieve significant cost reduction, boosting performance and efficiency while having more time to develop. In regards to storage, this provides engineers with the ability to address the following issues. Cost optimization of EBS volumes by being able to both shrink and expand volumes. Users can save as much as 70% of their EBS spend. Minimize the associated efforts that comes with managing EBS volumes. And last but not least, improving engineering performance and applications SLA, so they don't need to think about storage volumes anymore. To summarize, the end result is a real-time, fully automated management solution for your EBS volumes that will allow you to pay only for the storage that you actually need. Zesty Disk will take care of your storage capacity for you on the fly, and you will have the ease of mind that your data is safely and optimally managed. On that note, I'll pass the microphone to Oren, who will share what's new with AWS Storage Services and its automation capabilities.
Thank you, Aviram, for inviting me to speak together with you in this webinar. So Zesty is AWS technology partner, and you described how your solutions can help our customers to be more efficient using their AWS resources. So again, my name is Oren Tar, and I'm a business development manager for storage services at AWS. In this part, I will share with you some common data and storage management and operational practices that could help you be more efficient and save costs. So let's start. Storage is one of AWS core services, and we offer three types of storage services. Object with Amazon S3, block storage with Amazon EBS, and managed file systems with EFS and FSx services. We also have features and capabilities in those services to help you manage and operate your data at scale. And we will talk and describe some of them. Let's start with block storage. There are two types of them. Instant storage, which is a temporary block level storage that comes together with some of the EC2 instance types. And EBS, which is a persistent block storage that you attach to your EC2 instance. And unlike the instant storage, EBS has an independent lifecycle from the EC2 that it is attached to. And we will touch this point a little bit later. You can also take snapshots of your EBS. Snapshots are point-in-time incremental copies of your EBS data that you can later use to restore new volumes for the purposes of backup or DR. So let's look at three common EBS optimizations practices. One, save costs by automatically deleting unused EBS volumes. We see sometimes customers that have a bunch of EBS volumes that are no longer attached to any instance, but often unattached EBS volumes are overlooked. Two, automating the lifecycle of the EBS snapshots. And three, changing EBS volume types. We see customers shifting from GP2 to GP3 in order to get the benefits of the next generation EBS general purpose volume. So we will talk about that as well. Deleting unused EBS volumes, it's sometimes, as I said, overlooked. And unless you select the delete on termination option when you first launch your EBS, you continue to pay for unused EBS volume even after you terminate the EC2 instance. So if you have environments like test and dev, where you're constantly spinning up and down instances, you should also consider to have an automated workflow that clean up all the associated EBS volumes which are no longer in use. And while the idea here again is very straightforward, not everyone is taking the practice to do it. There is a blog post that was written by AWS solution architects where they describe a workflow to automate this process using AWS Systems Manager. As you can see here in this diagram, the workflow leverages CloudWatch events to periodically invoke a Lambda function that passes EBS CloudTrail events to create a work item in Systems Manager for all the EBS volumes that are in the available state, but have not been attached to an EC2 for some specific time period. For those who are not familiar with the AWS Systems Manager, so it's a service that provides you with a central place to view and manage your AWS resources and centralize operational data for multiple services. So with Systems Manager, as you can see in this example, you can automate some of the routine operations and tasks. Next, automating the lifecycle of EBS snapshots. Customers use Data Lifecycle Manager tool, or DLM, to lower the operational costs and complexity associated with keeping their business continuity requirements. DLM automates the creation, the retention, and also the deletion of snapshots, so there is no longer need to script around managing EBS snapshots. Using DLM, you can reduce storage costs by simply deleting outdated backups. It's simple, it's free, and it's an automated way to keep backups of EBS and EC2s. Recently, at Class re:Invent, we have also launched EBS Snapshot Archive option, which allows you to further save costs on storing snapshots by archiving them into a lower cost tier. So I do encourage you to check this out. You can save up to 75% using the archive snapshot new capabilities. Let's discuss now about migrating GP2 to GP3. We've launched GP3 back in December 2020. And since we see customers use GP3 for new workloads, as well as migrating existing GP2 volumes. So there are some key benefits of GP3 that drives customer to shift into the next generation general purpose EBS volume. First, it allows you to provision IOPS independent of the volume size. So decoupling between the IOPS performance and the size of the EBS you have provisioned. And it also offers 20% lower cost per gigabyte comparing to GP2. GP3 delivers a baseline of 3,000 IOPS and 125 megabytes of throughput for any volume size. So if you have a GP2 volume, for example, which up to 1 terabyte in size, migrating it to GP3 have the potential of savings you up to 20%. With Elastic Volume feature of EBS, you can modify volumes types. You can also change the IOPS or throughput without interruptions. You can use Elastic Volume to dynamically resize the volumes to increase the capacity, but not to decrease it. So this is where Zesty can come into play if you need a way to automatically auto-scale your EBS up and down to meet your dynamic changing requirements of the application. So now let's say that you have hundreds or maybe thousands of existing GP2 volumes that you want to migrate into GP3. You need to enable and to embed some kind of automation workflow. So again, One way to do it is you can trigger AWS System Manager by CloudWatch or EventBridge.
Let's move to talk about S3.
So customers use S3 for many different use cases, from backup NDR to building their own data lakes on S3. S3 theoretically is unlimited, and we have customers that store billions of objects, petabyte scales of data on S3. So obviously, you need a way to be able to manage all this data at scale, and S3 has integrated features and capabilities that can help you do that. For example, you can apply tagging to objects and use S3 prefixes to organize your data in the S3 bucket. You can also use CloudWatch or EventBridge, as well as S3 notification and S3 inventory to monitor your data. S3 Lens is a powerful visualization dashboard that can centralize information about your data in S3. So you can think of things like object counts or size of data in the bucket. Other metrics related to objects can be presented very simply with S3 Lens. So let's review some of the common operation practices around S3. Cost savings by tiering data to lower cost S3 storage classes. It's a very common and very important practice that we will discuss shortly. Cost savings by tiering data is something that many of the customers are trying to leverage the ability of using the different storage tiers of S3. Another common practice is replicating S3 data. We see customers trying to replicate data in their S3 buckets for different reasons, for data protection, for archiving, or for global expansion. We will see some options to do that. And last common operation or a practice that we will discuss is how to use batch operation to perform a task on billions of objects. So S3 offers several storage classes to save storage costs. Objects should be stored or moved between those different classes while their access pattern changes over time. The default storage class is the S3 standard for warm, active data, which is frequently accessed. After some time, let's say 30 days from the creation of an object, when the data becomes colder and it is less accessed, you can tier down to the infrequent access tier and start save 40% on storage costs. If needed, you can later archive the data in colder storage tiers, so Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive, to benefit from even lower storage costs. Recently, we have also announced another Glacier storage class, the Glacier Instant Retrievals, where you enjoy both worlds of very low costs of cold tier, up to 68% less than the infrequent access tier, and with the same time, enjoy the online access to this data when you need it, just like the standard storage class. One way to tier data between different storage classes is to use lifecycle policy, which is based on the object age. Another fully automated way to do it is to simply use S3 Intelligent Tiering Storage Class. This storage class automatically monitors and moves data to the most cost-optimized tier on a per object basis. Intelligent tiering automatically moves data between three tiers: the frequently accessed tier, the infrequently accessed tier, and the new archive instant retrieval tiers, which is kind of equivalent to the Glacier instant retrieval we've described. It also offers you to opt in to the deep archive access tier in order to further save costs on data that you no longer need to access and want to keep it just for business or regulation requirements, and you can leverage the low cost of deep archive storage class. And lastly, let's talk about another very common practice on S3. It's to replicate data. For data protection, customers replicate the S3 buckets to another account or replicate them across regions for global expansion. And there are several ways to replicate S3 data. One way is to use the S3 replication features that allows you to replicate data in the same region or across region for bucket synchronization purposes. We've also very recently announced batch replication for S3 that can also replicate existing objects in a very automated and simple way. So I encourage you to look into it. Save development time and manage billions of objects with a single request. So we have mentioned S3 batch operations. You use it to perform very large-scale operations on objects. It can perform a single operation on a list of billions of objects. So think of things like adding or removing object tags from millions of objects. Or maybe you want to restore many objects from the Glacier archive tier. So the way S3 batch operation works, it's you provided with a list of the objects you want to operate on. It can be a CSV list or even the output of the S3 inventory report. And then you can select an operation. Batch operation supports copy, restore from S3 Glacier, put access control list, replicate object tag, or run a Lambda function that will run a customized task that you define. It also gives you the tools to view the progress and the completion of the job and gives you also notification. So batch operations. This is your way to simplify managing very high scale data of millions and more of objects. So far, we've talked about ways to automate some of the processes and the tasks you usually take with your storage services. Now you can even take it to the next level and move to look into managed services. So why to move into managed file systems? First, it is fully managed. So it takes all the heavy lifting of updating and maintaining and managing your own file system. So instead of doing it yourself, use the managed file system and make some time to do other things than managing your own file systems. And you can choose between different types of managed file systems. From EFS, which is a Linux-based native cloud system, the first cloud file system that was offered by AWS back in 2016, and also to choose from a wide choice of FS6 type of file systems. FS6 started with offering FS6 for Windows, which is a fully compatible Windows file systems and fully managed. Then we also extended the offering of FS6 to Lustre, which is used for high performance environments, very high scale, high performance distributed file system. Again, very managed. We took the open source Lustre and manage it for you. And very recently, in September 2021, and later in reInvent, we introduced two new file systems. FS6 NetApp ONTAP, which is a NetApp ONTAP file system, generic offering service from AWS, fully managed, like to like. So if you have been using or are using NetApp on-prem and you want to be able to have the same look and feel and feature set in the cloud as a native generic service from AWS, I invite you to check out the FS6 for NetApp ONTAP. And FS6 for OpenZFS, also now available for your use. So this is this part, and Aviram, I'll give it back to you. So thank you again for inviting.
Well, indeed, it's me, Alex, who's taking over from here. But I'd like to really thank you, Oren, for your presentation, and indeed Aviram as well. Fascinating stuff. I'd like to invite those attendees that we have on the webinar to open any questions. We've saved some time at the end of this webinar for questions and answers. Please feel free to submit them on the chat. Whilst we're just waiting for those to come in, I'd be happy if maybe Aviram, you'd share the results from the survey. Excellent.
Yes. So I've shared them now.
Keeping costs low.
Yeah, definitely number one.
I guess no surprises there. That's the biggest challenge and the overriding priority, keeping on everybody's mind.
Yes, definitely. And then the second one is relates to cost as well. Using expensive IOPS provision storage to get sufficient performance. And yes, definitely we hear that from our customers as well. Using IO1 and IO2 or GP3 with higher IOPS is definitely a thing that DevOps engineers usually do. And at Zesty, we can help them with that. And I guess that we will talk about it in future sessions, but basically our technology improves the performance of the volume while reducing the costs. Yes, Alex, would you mind to go over the questions that I answered over the chat? No?
Yeah, absolutely. So whilst we're just waiting for some other questions to come in, let's start with Banu's question, which was, while using AWS DevOps, do we need, depending on third-party tools like Jenkins?
So that's a great question. We have Oren from AWS here as well, but yes, so I'll repeat what I wrote. And this is, let's say it's a common question that I heard for many years. Should I use another third parties while I'm using AWS tools? It's an option, of course. There are pros and cons with every service. Of course, customers use both sometimes and sometimes not. They choose not to do that. Oren, if you wish to add more input from your side, feel free to do that.
Yeah, so in general, AWS has a very vast ecosystem with partners and third parties that basically allows customers to leverage tools maybe that they're familiar with or it fits better to do a certain job. And that's absolutely fine. And we encourage you to check out our marketplace and AWS partner ecosystems to do a specific task. That's absolutely an option. And having said that, we also offer a generic AWS service equivalent that you can look into it and see if it can work for you. In that case, I can say that Code Pipeline is a fully managed continuous delivery service that can help you also to automate the release of your pipelines. So you can also check into a Code Pipeline generic service from AWS.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oren.
And a question coming from Osha is, if I manage a large scale of customers in AWS, how can I implement the GP3 validation and not move each volume and validate that parameter?
Okay, so I'll try to repeat the questions in a more elaborative way. So I guess that you're using GP2 currently, and you wish to move to GP3 in order to probably save cost or to use the latest technology, which is good. I'll answer from my perspective as an ex-technical account manager, and Owen, feel free to join and add your perspective. And then I'll answer this question from Zesty perspective. So I'll start with the official answer. So of course you can code it and do smart code that gets the size of the GP2 volume, multiply it by 3, and then you know what are the current IOPS configuration. And then you don't need to do it one by one. Your code will do it. You can use Excel sheet or whatever database you wish. Yet again, you need the expertise. Now I'll answer it how we help customers to migrate between GP2 and GP3. So since Zesty is a solution that managed the EBS volumes for you, we take care of the provisioning part, meaning we provision the volume in its minimum required size and handling the performance requirements as well. So our customers, when they wish to move from GP2 to GP3, they use they just deploy a volume, and we take care for all of these calculations and making sure that the required performance are met automatically. Furthermore, in most cases, we are not increasing the default 3000 IOPS that you get from the GP3 volume. Since we are splitting the volume into 5 parts, you get more than 10,000 IOPS by default. So in many cases, our solution not only saving costs on the volume size, it's also improve the performance you get from GP3 without adding any extra money. And that's really cool. And if you wish to hear more about the solution, feel free to send me a message or over LinkedIn or in any other way that is possible. And Oren, if you think that there is another thing to add about the migration from GP2 to GP3, feel free to elaborate.
Okay, so thanks, Aviram. So as I mentioned earlier in my part, so there are some ways to implement some kind of an automated workflow for that migration, because EBS does have this elastic volume feature, which allows you to change and also migrate the volume type, in this case, GP2 to GP3, with no disruption. So relating to what Aviram said about the provision IOPS, so if you have, and you know that you have GP2 with up to 1 terabyte of capacity each, you know that you get a maximum of 3,000 because the mathematics for GP2 is 3 IOPS per 1 gigabyte of provision storage capacity. Since 3,000 is also the base IOPS that GP3 offers, you can automate a way to migrate all those GP2, which are up to 1 terabyte of capacity, without affecting, or maybe in some cases, increasing and improving the IOPS, since again, 3,000 space with GP3. And another option, as Aviram said, again, you can use Zesty to do the provisioning for you. But if the question is about existing GP2, so you have already existing provision GP2 volumes, I would say leveraging the capabilities of EBS Elastic Volume through maybe Systems Manager, it's an option. And maybe we can share later the link. I think I also pasted it on the presentation to one of the blog posts that describes how you can automate this process.
Yeah, Alex, you're muted.
Apologies. Thank you, Oren, for that answer. I think we'll go for one more question. And when thinking about the final question, we've been speaking quite extensively about applying third-party tools into infrastructure. And I'm wondering what perhaps can go wrong from this perspective and how indeed we can perhaps mitigate and design for that failure.
Great. So the question is around what can go wrong with, let's say, third party that is fully automated? This is a great question because it's a concern. But once I'll talk in general about third parties. Usually, they know what they're doing. That's if you trust the third party, it's really easy to use them and in scale. Of course, you need to test everything that you are trying or building or implementing. It's a good practice always. And in most cases, third parties will be more secure, more reliable, and more efficient. Having said that, what can go wrong, like with every IT systems and technology, things can go wrong. And then you will need to have a DR plan or a business continuity plan. And specifically with Zesty, we have a great notion where if something happens to Zesty, everything continue to work. The resources are in the customer's account. So even if our system is not working, everything continue to work, and the customer can manually adjust things if needed. Having said that, we build the system in a way that it should be very tolerant and handle more than one technical issue within the architecture. So we are leveraging serverless and managed AWS services that are spent in several availability zones and regions. So our system is ready for 1 or even 2 or 3 failures. Of course, it depends on what type of failures. Yes, things can go wrong anytime. That's for sure. And when you use a third party, you want to make sure that their architecture is resilient, reliable, and have good automation to handle disasters. That's something that we really believe internally, and I always pitch about this to customers. That's super important.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Aviram, for that, and thank you indeed, Oren, for joining us today and showing us how AWS customers can manage AWS storage solutions. And yes, thank you everybody for joining our webinar today. I hope you found it valuable. For more information about provisioning and optimizing EBS volumes, I'm going to be posting an ebook that we've written in the chat now. Feel free to check this out. It's also available on the Zesty website. And that's going to be it for now. Unless, did I see one more question in the chat? Sorry. Yeah, indeed. If we've got time, John's asked one more question. So why don't we go with John's question regarding RI automation? They're currently looking to use savings plans and wanted to see what advantages we can have from using our pricing model. In essence, their discounts and savings would be lower, but we would still look for further flexibility as our infrastructure changes with the high frequency. Can you explain this? So Aviram, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes. So we didn't discuss about Commitment Manager, which is one of our products. It's our first product, which is really helping customers to automate RI purchases and selling. Okay. I'll discuss it, John, your second question as well in a minute. And so to answer your first question, the benefit of using Zesty Commitment Manager is that you get buyback guarantee, and we automatically adapt to your changes. Meaning, if you change the instance types that you are using, we monitoring your environment in real time. It's almost in real time, of course, but it's very, very close to real time. And we sell all the RI for you automatically and purchase the new type of instances that you are using for you. And if something goes wrong and we didn't manage to sell the old RI, we have buyback guarantee, which is something that you don't get from the traditional savings plans or RIs if you purchase them alone. Buyback guarantee means that you will be credited about wasted reservations that we weren't able to sell. Of course, this is something that is really rare, but it might happen. And Zesty Commitment Manager is the only solution in the market that do so. So we trust our solution. Hundreds of customers trust it. And definitely we are standing behind this promise of buyback guarantee. And the second question is what things you have to provide Zesty before. So onboarding to Commitment Manager is something that takes around 5 minutes. The only thing that you need to do on your side is run a CloudFormation template that adds an IAM permission on your account. Usually it's the master account. After a few minutes, you can see the potential savings that we provide to you. And of course, there is a really quick onboarding step, and you can start using Zesty Commitment Manager. Yeah, that's all. Alex, did I miss anything that you want to add to these two questions?
No, I think you really you tapped on it there, and yeah, indeed. In case you're interested in finding out more about the Commitment Manager, you can indeed onboard with using the free trial, which is available on the website, or contact one of our team. We'll be more than happy to walk you through step by step in this process. Unfortunately, we've run out of time today, but again, in case there's any more questions, please reach out. More than happy to answer. You can also look at the various collateral like the playbook, which is available on our website. And thank you again to everybody. Thank you, Oren. Thank you, Aviram. And thank you everybody for joining. Have a good day.